All right, guys, what's going on? Zach here with my boy Matt Reynolds from ReynoldsStrong.com. Welcome to another Strong Life podcast. As usual, we're going to be talking strength, strength for life, strength in and out of the gym. Matt brings a wide array of knowledge, a wide array of experience. So we haven't blended as much business on the last few episodes. But Matt is a tremendous businessman, entrepreneurial, smart-minded guy, and we did some coaching as soon as I heard your episode on barbell business. And for those of you listening, I will link up show notes back to all of his website, his social channels, but everything is very easy. So for those of you listening, Reynolds Strong is where he is on all social media. So make sure when you guys get a break and sit down, you head on over to zachevnish.com, same as undergroundstrength.tv. Matt and I were just saying, man, too bad my last name and everything's not as easy as yours. It's, it's so easy for people to find the website, but I will link it all up. And we got some questions on the Instagram and give you guys a little bit of background on Matt. I heard, like I said, first time you were on Barbell Business, and they put you on the Barbell Shrugged also. Did they do both or just the business?
Yeah, just the business side. Yeah.
So it was interesting. You're down in Missouri, right?
Yep, Springfield, Missouri.
Yes.
Ozarks.
So, man, you were a strength coach in a high school, and what caught my attention so much was how when you opened your first gym and you sold that a year ago, I remember what shocked me was you guys went in on a huge building in the downtown area, and I think you said it was like a $600,000 build out.
Yep.
And when I heard you say that, I was like, damn, this dude's got balls. Like, he's just going for it. And that in itself inspired me. I pick up on little things like that. And I was like, whew, this guy he went for it. As opposed to me, when I'm thinking of opening a gym, I'm thinking of like, keep overhead low, all this keeping it low. And what was interesting is I'm listening to your conversation. You've got, it was like you attacked everything with that, just balls to the wall. So pro strongman, elite level powerlifter. When was that? Back in 03 or?
Yeah, and still, I think I first hit that in 03 and still hit those numbers. So somewhere in that ballpark. I'm old, but I'm still decently strong.
I will post up. I saw a recent video of you just destroying a big ass deadlift. I think you were with Coach Rip at a starting strength seminar, and the weights were wrapped up onto the bar. So it was like all these things. I see kind of your mindset going for it big in a very. I mean, we're gonna get into the details of it, but pro strongman, elite level power lifter. You're not into this kind of play it safe, drive the speed limit type deal. So it's going to be cool when we kind of we'll do some of these questions and we'll let things expand. But do you want to give any like added intro? Right now you're doing a lot of online coaching. I mean, you're still very busy.
Yeah, I am. Thank you for having me on the show, and thanks for the intro. And yeah, man, I'll just say that I think when I think back over my history, I'm not wired from birth to be that way, to seek adventure. But something has occurred over the last 10 or 15 years that has pushed me that direction. I really think it was strength. I mean, I think we underestimate the value that strength has on the psyche and the human emotion. And so I was that skinny little preacher's kid, nerdy, mathlete is what I was. That's what I was, And so very average athlete, very average in lifting, wasn't great at anything, was pretty smart and kind of known for being smart in school. And that certainly has helped me along the way in business. But over time, man, I almost, there are times when I wish that at 37 years old, I was wired to be a little more safe now. But I'm not. It's just not. It's not the way I'm wired. I've definitely had that entrepreneurial spirit at this point. I'm willing to pull the trigger on things and take risk and push that direction because I think, again, those guys that take the biggest risks, they have the potential for the greatest rewards. But they also fail a lot. So that's part of it. And I certainly haven't succeeded at everything I've done, but I'm willing to ride that wave right on the edge. The middle is boring, right? I mean, that's what do I want to do in the middle? And so the edge is a lot more fun, and it's created a life that I could have never imagined for myself. I started in as safe gets. I was a public school teacher. It doesn't get any safer than that. Just you know that world. And so another connection we have there. So I taught junior high school for 10 years, and
that's not safe.
No, well,
that is tough. Junior high school is very challenging. No doubt.
It is. It's amazing, though, when you're 285, when you're a 285-pound powerlifter, that classroom management is not quite as difficult for you as it is for other teachers. So, yeah, but, and I saw an industry where there was nowhere to go. And so here I was a teacher. Yes, I was a high school strength coach at a big school and saw several hundred kids every single day. I definitely attribute a lot of my coaching prowess to the things I learned. If you can teach 65 or 70 kids how to squat at the same time in the same room and get them within 90% of correct, you get to be a pretty good coach. You learn how to get very efficient. And so that definitely helped. But I saw that I wasn't wired to – one, I don't think I'm wired to climb a corporate ladder. And the worst part about school, teaching public school, is there isn't a corporate ladder. The best teacher and the worst teacher in the building make the same amount of money. Yes. You get your little tiny raise every single year. And so I went to get my master's to be a high school principal. And by the time I finished my master's to be a high school principal, I knew that I, in fact, did not want to become a high school principal. And so I started to really almost immediately upon finishing my master's, started pushing very hard into the gym. And so up until that point, from 2008 to 2011, the gym was just a fun hobby place for strongmen and powerlifters. And it was a great gym, and we had a great atmosphere, but it certainly wasn't ever going to make me much money. I mean, I'm in Springfield, Missouri, is 250,000 people. There's certainly not enough strongmen and powerlifters to make a bunch of money here to have that be your sole demographic in your gym. And so we started trying to push, how do we keep our soul as a strength gym, as a black iron barbell-based gym, and still attract business professionals and soccer moms and seniors and high school kids and all sorts of things. We were able to do that very well. And so really from the time that I decided, okay, this is a part-time hobby that I'm doing on the side with another business partner, to the time we pushed all in and like you said, went into the 15,000 square foot retail space in the downtown hub of our city, $600,000 in renovation on the building. It got real risky in a hurry.
That was crazy. I've been sharing a quote I heard. I'm pretty sure it was Tony Robbins. He said something like, "Your happiness, as an entrepreneur, is going to be very dependent on how much uncertainty you could comfortably handle." Yep. And so funny. Sometimes that's all I need to hear to remind myself to just all right, listen, you're an entrepreneur. There's going to be stress. So as soon as you understand there's going to be stress, it's like less stressful already.
Yep.
So that's right. You actually, your first location, I think, was like an upstairs above another building.
Our first location was upstairs above office space. There were like engineers, mechanical and civil engineers underneath us. You can imagine how happy they were with a barbell-based gym and strongman training above their head. And so they after about 3 weeks of moving in there, they came up and said, "Hey, you can squat and you can bench press and you can press during the day, but you can't deadlift and you can't flip tires and you can't do yokes and farmer's walks and stuff, and except for after hours." So we had to save, deadlifts and tire flips for after 5 p.m. on weekdays and on Saturdays. We had a lot of Saturday deadlift and strongman days, which works out great. A lot of people do that. And so Saturday became deadlift and strongman day, and everybody showed up and did that. And man, we didn't even have a sign at the first location. Again, the goal of the first location was not to build a business. That wasn't even the goal. The goal was, hey, we have 28, 30 guys in a 2-car garage, which is ridiculous. Yep. And we've got to all start putting money in a pot and take it and rent a place. So we just rented a big, terrible industrial space, no heat, no air conditioning. It had a bathroom, a poorly made one. And that was it, and people, we built it and people started showing up. And we were there. We were only in that first location 6 or 8 months, and then moved to our next location. And it was a step up in quality, a step down in size, and outgrew it. I think we were there for another year and a half or so. Yep. Moved to the next location, and it was about 3,500 square feet, close to 4,000 square feet. Again, a step up in both quality and size. And then made the final push. Opened the beginning of the year 2013 in the new location, 15,000 square feet. And that's where it really blew up. And so by that time, we developed a pretty good following on Facebook and the different social media outlets. And so we were really able to tease a lot. So as we did all that renovation to the project, we started taking teaser pictures. This is what the powerlifting room is going to look like. This is what the CrossFit room is going to look like. This is what the general fitness room is going to look like. Look, we have a great conference room. We've got this lobby. We've got all this great stuff. We've got locker rooms and showers and all that kind of stuff. And so we really had a lot of momentum going in on that first opening weekend. And so we opened our first weekend. We had about 65 or 70 members when we opened the big location.
Yep.
And we gained close to 300 members in the first 36 hours. And so we did a kind of a soft opening Friday night and a grand opening on Saturday. And by the end of Saturday, we had somewhere around 350 members. So we had gone from 65 or 70 to 350 or close to pushing 400 by the end of our first weekend. And so, when you talk about that risk, and that's really, I look back over my life, and actually, I need to say this. Today's my 16th wedding anniversary. So happy anniversary to my wife. And so I look back.
She's gonna hate me now.
No, it's fine.
Spending the anniversary on a podcast.
I'll do stuff tonight. I look back over the great moments of my life, my wedding, and when my kids were born, and certainly in the top 5 is the night that I walked downstairs into my house after gaining 300 members of my gym, and I just broke down and lost. It was the last times I probably literally audibly sobbed like a child because I knew that all this risk was going to pay off and it was going to be okay.
Yeah, so, it's you gotta kind of like go through all those obstacles, a lot of them, before the opportunity unveils itself. What if we back up? When did you stop teaching, going through those multiple locations? And a lot of people ask me that question. They're like, how did you decide, Zach, to stop teaching? When I first opened the warehouse, I was getting phone calls and regular emails every other day by like white collar professionals, like attorneys, accountants, and they're like, F this suit and tie. I want to flip tires. I want to they basically were saying, I want to live a life that follows my passion.
Sure.
And I think Tim Ferriss interviewed somebody. I got to listen to it. He's saying, don't follow your passion. But then you listen to some of the most successful people in the world, and they say, if you're not following your passion, it's really hard. But some people, their passion is just make money, not so much how they make the money. Sure. I'm a big why, how I do the things I do versus, hey, I've got a lot of money, but like I'm selling, I don't know, toothbrushes. I just can't go to the grave that way. So talk about mindset and when you decided with this transition out of teaching and just saying, I could do it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I come from, again, probably what's deep inside my personality from birth is safety. And so if people have heard me on other podcasts, I love the E-Myth. I love that book. I think that book is a perfect example of what your typical CrossFit coach does, right? Somebody who is an attorney or an accountant has a good job. They fall in love with CrossFit. They go get their level 1. They start coaching CrossFit. Maybe they're even a good CrossFit coach. Yep. And they decide, hey, I should quit being an attorney and open a CrossFit gym. But you have no idea how to run a business. You just know how to coach CrossFit, or you know how to coach strength. You know how to, or maybe you don't. I mean, there's even a lot of people that don't really know how to do that stuff. So, but even if you do, that doesn't. When you open a business, you're no longer primarily a coach or a CrossFit instructor or whatever. You're a business owner. And so I certainly would start with the foundation of I would wait as long as I could. However, I'm also a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. I just read his book, and I'll be honest, I was very hesitant. I'm not really into super rah-rah, entrepreneurial. I just want practical shit, man. I just want practical stuff that works. And so I really felt like Gary V's new book was going to be that, and it wasn't. It was very practical. It was very right, but he's very much you've got to follow your passion. You got to do what you love. And so I think that it's fine to follow your passion. I think it's stupid to quit your job, especially when you have a family and you're supporting a wife and kids and things like that. It's to quit a good, decent paying job to follow your passion when you don't really have any money or any capital to start that thing. And so for me, to put that into perspective, I taught all the way through the first 3 locations that Strong Gym had. And I actually left my job as a teacher in the middle of the school year at Christmas at the semester which didn't make the school board very happy, and left in the middle of the year to make the jump just as we were opening the Great Big Giant location. And so I literally held off as long as I could.
Me too.
Left, and then it went. And so, but we were in a position where I knew that even if it didn't work, we could live for close to 6 months on the money that we had accumulated. And so we had enough capital to go, okay, if this goes poorly, I've got, I'm not going to lose my house in the next 6 months. And so I think you've got to find a balance between those two, for sure.
Yes. In the early days of when I started my certification, there were people so hyped up, and they left jobs while they had wife, kids, before they had business know-how. They basically, outfitted a warehouse gym, rolled up the garage doors, and thought they would be pumping. And as you and I know, it doesn't work that way, especially now. I mean, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, when people were doing that, there weren't a whole lot of quote-unquote strength and conditioning coaches. So it was even, you'd say, okay, you're more appealing because there's not a whole lot of you out there. But I saw people ruin relationships and whatnot. So when I left, my online, and I was running the gym, was far exceeding my pay. And then I also left. I kind of did what you did, but I was maxed out. I had my master's degree. I was going to be an administrator. I wanted to teach in the college, and I know you're doing that now as an adjunct. I think like when you're a teacher, you're just a teacher. I mean,
you just like to teach.
Yes.
I don't care what the subject is.
Yes. So you're always finding a way. So what I did is I took a leave of absence for a year to give my wife like a bit of a calming effect versus saying, I quit.
Right.
So to prove to her that I could do it, because I think if people, like a lot of guys will tell me, my wife was raised in a family where, and most families, their families are not entrepreneurs. Back in the day, I'm talking 5-10 years, 5 years ago, entrepreneur came the cool word. Back in the day, if you said you're an entrepreneur, people are like, whoa, what the F? Like, this is bad. Where's your pension? Where's your insurance?
Right. Sure.
Until you have that know-how. So amazing that you went through, it's tough, early teaching, expending your energy teaching, then coaching, then running the business. And you were also, when you were running those earlier gyms, is that when you were starting strength and kind of getting into that seminar and the learnings of Coach Rip?
Yeah, so I have known Ripito since the early to mid 2000s, before he wrote Starting Strength. And I was actually writing at the time for Bodybuilding.com, which I'm probably partially I don't think I'd write for Bodybuilding.com now, but at the time it was great. It was a great gig.
Yep.
And so I was writing. They actually had come out with kind of a strength-based online magazine. And so I interviewed Glenn Penley. I knew Penley beforehand, and Penley was at the time at Rip's gym, was Rip's Olympic lifting coach. Knew Penley, interviewed him there, and had met Rip through Glenn. And so then when Ripito got ready to write Starting Strength, we had connected, and I said, hey, I'd like to interview you if you're interested. I hear great things about you as a coach. And I never talked to him on the phone or anything. I mean, never actually even met him in person, just kind of via email. And he was interested in doing that interview because he was getting ready to promote Starting Strength. And so we struck up a friendship then. That would have been in 2004. I think Starting Strength came out in 2005. There are lots of problems with the first edition of the book of Starting Strength, and it was still the best strength training book ever written, in my opinion, the very first one. Now, it's
that was a question. Somebody had asked, one of the questions was, they said, is there any strength training books you recommend reading, and what's the best book you've read? We'll get into the next part. They want to know about the business book, but is Starting Strength you feel?
I mean, I think if you ask, so Wendler's a good buddy of mine. Wendler would say the same thing. He'd say, look, this is the best Starting Strength, which is now in the third edition, and the third edition is exponentially better than the first and second edition.
I'll have to get that.
Because it's a living document, right? So as we've brought in more really smart people, we continue to chew on the process of how we teach these lifts and the method. Starting Strength is not just a program. I think a lot of people think of it as a program. It's at 3 sets of 5 on squats, add a little weight each time. And that's true. There is a Starting Strength program. But so much more than the program is the methodology for how we teach the lifts. And so Rip invited me down in, I think, late 2009 to do his seminar. He had just left CrossFit. He had been CrossFit's kind of head strength guy
That's
for
right.
a few years.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and was doing starting strength certifications through CrossFit.
Yeah.
I just left it and called me and said, hey, I want you to take the seminar. I want you to see what you think of the seminar. And so again, by 2009, I had been doing this for 12 or 13 years. And so I was a smart guy. I was a pro strongman. I was a elite level powerlifter. Man, I came in and I read all the time, and I've always searched for knowledge and got a pretty high IQ. And I came into this seminar and got my mind blown. I mean, it was just unbelievable, the info, especially when you got down to the physics and the biomechanics part. It's just, you just can't argue with the physics. And so he started breaking down these physics, and this was before the third edition of the book was written, and all of these physics are now in that third edition of the book. So at the time, it hadn't even been put out in print, so nobody had ever heard this stuff. And we started breaking down moment arms and moment forces, what a lot of people might think of as torque, which is a little bit different, but on the back and on the hip and on the shin. And I started, my mind was just going nuts. And okay, powerlifters, why do they take a wide stance? And why do they sumo deadlift? And why do they do these things? And all of those things started to make sense. We knew that you're more efficient powerlifting if you take a wide stance squat. And we knew you're more efficient in a deadlift if you do a sumo deadlift. The question was, why are you more efficient, right? And not just the shorter range of motion, but why is that still better? Why can I take this? So anyway, this started to bring all this stuff together. Took the seminar, passed it, did well. Took an essay test, which, by the way, people who want to do the starting strength seminar, it's the only certification in strength and conditioning where you're really forced to actually teach people on a I've got my CSCS. That's a multiple choice test. Yep. I didn't have to prove that I could coach to get my CSCS. Do I think it's important to get it? Yeah, because it's well known nationally, worldwide, it's the CSCS. But with starting strength, you have got a coach on the platform, and you're graded by other starting strength staff members, a different staff member for each lift. So you have to coach the squat, you have to coach the deadlift, you have to coach the bench press, and the power clean. And if you pass all 5 of those, a few days after the seminar, you get sent an essay test, and you have to write about a 30, 40-page essay test over a 2-week period. It's horrible. It's brutal. It's
What's the essay about?
So it's physics, moment arms, programming. So there's 3 really important programming questions where he takes different demographics. So hey, I don't want to give the question away, but hey, sure. This is the age group and the sex and the person and this is their history background and how would you train them for their first month of training. It's kind of one of those things. And then here's a totally different demographic. And so what the programming questions really does is it weeds out the people who are just great at reading books. You can't program for some of these people unless you've actually coached.
Nice.
And so we're not there to make coaches. You don't show up to a piano certification on a weekend and go from not knowing how to play the piano to a concert pianist in 3 days. And starting strength cert is the same thing. We identify people who are already great coaches and continue to tweak them up. So I started doing that. So very shortly after I passed, he called me maybe 2 weeks later and said, hey, can you be on an airplane to Seattle? And again, I am born and raised, lived in the Ozarks in Missouri, was a junior high teacher, football coach, strength coach, and all of a sudden I get an all-expense-paid trip to the other side of the United States to teach people how to squat. And it continued from there. And so I don't know how many seminars. I've probably done 75 or 80 seminars at this point for Ripito. And actually we did one this past weekend in San Antonio and doing one next week or a couple weeks, 2 weeks, I guess, down at his place. And so I love it, man. I love doing the seminars. I love teaching people how to lift. I love watching coaches coach and honing their skills. I mean, I love everything about it. So, and that said, I am not a purely, I think there are a lot of people that all they know is starting strength. Okay. And I'm not a starting strength cult member at all. Like my background is West Side Barbell. I learned from West Side. I learned from Elite FTS, Dave Tate, that crew. That's how I started reading your stuff, your early work on Elite FTS. That's my background before starting strength. And so I still pull a lot of stuff from there. But for the most part, again, when I get down to the physics of the way the lifts work, I just agree with 99% of everything that's in the book.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. There's always going to be things like you agree with it, but then all of a sudden in this scenario, I'm sure like Rip does that. His interviews are awesome. Did he interview you on his starting strength?
I haven't done his podcast yet. So
okay.
I know he's done like Brett McKay, who runs Art of Manliness, is one of my clients. He's interviewed him. We've done several of my clients to see. Oh, James Yeager, who's probably the world's most famous firearms instructor. He's one of my clients. So he's done him. And so I get mentioned a lot on those things. But yeah, we haven't done one with him yet. So
very cool. I'm going to pull some of these questions from the Instagram. It's going to keep our conversation kind kind of floating. So you're now that you sold the gym. Was it a year ago or when was that?
End of the year 2015, so it's been about 6 months now.
Yep. And I remember you saying like you felt like the weight of the world got lifted off your chest.
Yeah, the process of selling a business is the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, I thought for about 6 weeks I was going to have a stroke. And I mean, it's brutal because you've built up that this is your baby. You've built it up. Now you're selling it. And the person that's buying it, is going to change it.
Sure.
And once they've decided to buy it, so they, you kind of get buttered up. Hey, we're going to buy your business. Everything's great. We love your business. And the second they decide that they're going to buy it and that you're going to sell it, now it's, let me tell you all the stuff I hate about your business so I can get the cheapest rate I can to purchase your business for, right? So you end up then defending your business for, and man, we did everything by the book. We had great accounting. We had incredible systems. We had projected, automated. All our customers were automated and contracted. And so we could project financials out 3 months and 6 months and a year and all those sorts of things. I mean, everything you're supposed to do to sell a business, we did. And yet it was still horrible. I mean, it's horrible. The day it sold,
my buddy tells me, he goes, stop treating your business like it's your girlfriend, because then you get all emotional. You get emotional over all that stuff. He's like, business is business, and you got to have that thick skin. And that's why I tell people about that book. You ever read that book, Thick Face, Black Heart?
No,
Chin Ning Chu. I think it was banned in China. I know you actually did a starting strength seminar in China, but I believe in the early days they may have banned it in China because a woman wrote it. And Dan Kennedy used to really recommend that book. And it was about just the toughness needed through business. I feel like, going back to your early comment about you were kind of like a chill kid, you weren't this awesome athlete, but then you become a pro strongman. You total elite in powerlifting. And I also didn't get my mental edge until I started learning from Louie, Dave Tate, Jim Wendler, guys like this who were alpha males, so to speak. And I think it's like some of us need these mentors, or they come across our life in the right. Like I was thinking recently, I'm like, man, sometimes I'm so edgy. I assume like people just cannot relate to my shit. Like I say things like, I will burn this gym down before I let some lazy kid here. Who the fuck? Who says? I'm thinking to myself, I must sound like a freak. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And but I'm like, but that's who I am. That's what I've kind of evolved into through our circle of influence, our circle of friends. And Jim is the first guy actually that told me about starting strength. I remember we used to hop on the phone pretty regularly, and he was working at Elite, and I was like, hey brother, what's happening? He's like, I'm reading Starting Strength. He's like, best goddamn book on lifting. He's like, you need to get this book. I was like, all right, I'll buy it. So he was the first guy that told me that. So let's, now you're doing a lot of online programming. You mentioned Brett. And what was the name of the other guy? He does a lot of firearms instruction.
James Yeager is his name. I think he's got about 350,000 followers on YouTube. He's a big YouTube firearms star. The guy was he was a contractor in Iraq before Blackwater got there. He was one of the original contractors, and so did a lot of work out there and had been in law enforcement beforehand. And so he's kind of the way I met him was he came to a starting strength seminar, and he told me it was the most arrogant thing anyone's ever said. He said, hey, I'm the Mark Ripito of firearms.
Nice.
And I was like, who is this guy? But then I looked him up, and he was the Mark Ripito of firearms. And so we developed a friendship, and he started coming to my training camps and seminars that I did. And started working together, and I do seminars at his place, and so it's a blast.
You know what's interesting is we're going to get into this, but you have how many online coaching clients do you have roundabout?
About 140 right now. 140.
140, and it's not like we're like going nuts trying to push that. But I always tell coaches, I go, when you genuinely care, you will seek out excellence. You will become a great coach. You'll constantly get better. You're talking about starting strength version 1, version 2, version 3. Yep. You're talking about not only teaching the seminar, but learning from everybody there. And then it's like the right things happen. So, like I told my wife that. I said, I was down at Sore Neck Summer Strong. By the way, you would love it. I mean, it's your people. You guys would love it. And it was like the right, it kind of like reaffirmed. There was, one of the strength coaches in the NFL, another strength coach from the majors. He was like, I love what you do. I want to come visit your gym. I want to see what you do. And I tell people, and I told my wife, I said, I'm not trying to garner that attention or to be viewed in that way. All I think is the kids are number one. We got to get
Sure.
better every day to give the kids the best we can. And I think, like, for the good people, good things are going to happen.
Sure.
So I really want to put that out there because people may have never heard of you, just like many people have never heard of me. And
Sure.
I think it's like just focus on being a great coach first and foremost, right?
Yep.
That's the
Yeah, man,
ticket.
I think people, when I left, we talked about this before the interview, and you and I have talked about this some before, that I spent so much time trying to build up the brand
Yes.
of Strong Gym, of my gym, that I never really spent time to build up my personal brand. And so, which was fine. Strong Gym was me, and I was Strong Gym until you sell Strong Gym, and then you
Yep.
go, shit, what am I going to do? And so, for me, I love to watch people get better. I love to take an active role in helping people get better. And so for me, and again, yes, I'm doing online coaching now. And my big thing, I think that what you have to ask in whatever industry or genre you're in is what's going to separate me from everybody else. So online coaching is a huge deal right now, right? It's all over the place. You got the Renaissance guys who are absolutely crushing it right now.
Yep.
But what makes you better than anybody else? And I think I'm going to ask that question if I'm a trash man. I don't care what it is. I go, look, I can go, the average soccer mom can go to any Planet Fitness, Globo gym, and go get an 18-year-old kid with a name tag that says trainer on the side of his shirt, and they don't know the difference. Right?
Yeah.
So what do I do to separate myself as that's not who I am, right? And so for me, one of the things that I do is I do form coaching for every single client. I have 140 clients. I watch about 1,000 YouTube videos a week. My guy, I say, look, you're not getting a cookie cutter program. It's an absolute personalized. Every Sunday I sit down for hours and hours and hours and program for my clients. And then throughout the week, most of my clients are trained 3 days a week. Some of them train 4 days a week. Some of them do 5, but most of them are in that 3 to 4 range. At the end of every workout, they video their lifts. They video the last working set of their squats, their deadlifts, all their major lifts, and they upload them to YouTube and they send them to me. And then I break down their form on an email. And so I'll tell you what, it's made me a better coach because I've never had to communicate to somebody how to make their lifts better via typed written word. I've only had to speak it verbally. And we talk about this in Starting Strength. When I'm in person, I can coach you verbally. I can coach you visually. I go knees out. I can tap you on your sacrum and say, hip drive this up. This is what has to come up first, that sort of stuff. I can't do that on online coaching. So there's a clear degradation, a little bit of a degradation in person, real-time coaching and online coaching. And that I try to be very open about that with my clients. Here's the degradation. If you hire me in person, I'm $150 an hour, and I can fix you from rep to rep. From rep 1 in your squat to rep 2 in your squat, we can have improvement. And if you hire me in online coaching, I'm $150 a month, so it's way cheaper, but I can only fix you from session to session, right? But I would still love to take those clients that I have and go back and watch their squat on day one, and it's atrocious. They're forward on their knees, they're on their toes. You just feel like, oh my God, how do your patellas not snap off? And then I look at their squats a month later after they've done 12 or 15 sessions with me and go, holy shit, we fixed it.
I know, you're like,
And so I love it. And so I think about all these people that are paying for online coaching, which is really just a cookie cutter program. And for people that already do the list fine, that's fine. But if you need form coaching, and man, there are a lot of people that have emailed me, go, look, I'm pretty sure my form is great. And then they send me their videos, and I go, oh, God, we have to have an uncomfortable, awkward conversation now about how your form is, in fact, not very good.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's what separates me on the online coaching world. But I think it's the same thing, whether you own a gym, strength gym, whether you're a strength coach, for athletes at the high school, Division I level, or pro level. It doesn't matter what you do. What makes you the best? And so for me, I just think I've pushed really hard to be the best possible coach I can. I'm not going to let people outwork me. So I still lift 4 to 5 days a week. I love to train myself. I still train. I have 7 clients. I built a super nice gym, bought everything from Rogue Fitness. I love those guys. I have 7 clients that still come in and train in person in my house. So I'm still doing it actively every single day. Online coaching every day. Man, I read probably 2 books a week, 2 to 3 books a week. I'm always reading one, Audible, I have one going on Audible, podcasting all the time. Because I can't control my IQ, right? Whether I'm born with a 95 IQ or a 165 IQ, I can't control that. But I can keep from being outworked. And I think that's the real idea behind the entrepreneur. And even if I can come back to that thing that we talked about a minute ago, if you're not married and you don't have kids, you should definitely be following your passion. You should be sleeping on a mattress in the floor of your brick and mortar location, and you should be killing it, because it doesn't matter. Go eat ramen noodles, eat bologna. It doesn't matter.
We forgot.
Get soup.
We forgot to say that earlier. I remember saying
that's
to myself when I was first selling an ebook, I think it was like 1995. It may have started at like $14.95, and then I bumped it to $17, then $19.95, and I remember I sold 5 in a day, right? So it was like $99. I was like, man, if I wasn't engaged, I'd quit my job and sleep in my car.
Yeah, right. I know.
I was saying,
I was
like, dude, I am, talking that way, but that's what you need. You need that hunger.
Yep. And you don't have any business doing that if you've been married for 10 years, you got a couple kids, you need to make sure that you provide for your family. So that means you got to work longer hours, because you're working 40 hours a week at your normal day job, and you're putting in an additional 30, 35 hours, 40 hours a week. So you're working 80 hours a week on the growing your business, growing your brand, being an entrepreneur. That's fine. When you're a single guy, you can work 90 hours a week, all growing your business.
Yeah.
Right? Because it doesn't matter. You can live in your car.
Yeah.
Right? It's fine.
You could live like you're saying. And you have to, there's that necessity of mental toughness, meaning, and I carry that with me all the time. So my wife goes to work pretty early. She's just started going back to work full time like 9 months ago. My son is in first grade. My daughter's in fourth. But for like 5-6 years, she didn't work. And I take pride in that mental toughness. And I think we learn that from our training, to have grit, to be tough, to kind of thrive, waking up early, working while other people would, quit or bail out or give up. But there's, there's also sometimes where I was in those situations where I was like, shit, I don't know if I could do this anymore. I don't know if I could. And then I listen to an interview by you, or I hear a Gary Vaynerchuk little YouTube video, and it's like, look, man, this shit ain't easy. You're going to have to gut it out and be tough. And then I get the reminder. And I've been on a very good roll, and I feel like the kind of the way you are is you're always progressing and evolving. You're saying, hey man, nobody's going to outwork me. When you have something like that driving you, you don't run into the walls, or the obstacles don't seem so tough. One person was asking how you stay focused with all that coaching, watching all those videos, but I guess you kind of answered it with your desire, your inner drive. But is there any other way that, like, why you're so focused?
Get up really early. I'm a morning guy.
Yep.
I drink a lot of really good coffee.
What coffee?
I do.
Who do you get your coffee from? What's your coffee brand?
So I'll throw a shout out here. We've got a local place called Brick and Mortar Coffee that's a local roaster here in Springfield that brings all their stuff in. Organic, local, organic, single origin farmer guys from Ethiopia and Colombia and whatever. And so they roast it and they deliver it to my house every 2 weeks. And I bought a bunch of that stuff when I was strong and had a good relationship with them. And so I get up every morning. Look, do I want to get up at 4 o'clock every morning? No, right? I don't. But here's the deal. From 4 o'clock to 8 a.m., from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. while my family's still asleep, that's my best 4 hours of the day.
Yes.
Right?
So 4 to 8.
I can get up. And so at 4 o'clock I get up, or 4:30 I get up and go, God, I don't want to get up right now. But then I think, wait a minute, I got great coffee waiting for me downstairs.
Yeah.
And I go down and I get that first cup of coffee and I start knocking out emails and I start watching YouTube videos. And so my goal is every day, by the time my family wakes up, the emails and the YouTube videos have been watched, all these forum videos. Now, a lot of times I don't make it and I still have more to do, but that's kind of, I'm trying to set those goals, those time goals for myself. And then when they wake up, my wife makes breakfast, we go and train, and I get a break from kind of a mental break, and I'll train at like 8 a.m. in the morning, train with my wife, and she's really strong and pretty good workout partner, and then come back and go back to, after I train, I then try to grow the business. So, okay, what are we doing with the business as far as, I can't be complacent in, I have 140 clients, because here's the deal. The nature of online coaching is people don't stay forever.
Sure.
I have extremely low churn rate, like a 1%, about right at 1% per month. Yep. And I hope if I can go stay at 1% per month forever, that would be great. As long as I continue to grow more than 1%, I'm going to grow. But I can't be complacent and go, okay, I've got it. I've got all this money rolling in for online coaching. I've got to continue to push. And both in the side of how do I get more clients, and 2, how do I continue to provide the best service possible to the ones I already have. I don't want somebody to leave me and go hire Renaissance Periodization, right? So, and they probably write great programs, but I want to go, this is so good that you're never going to leave, right? And so that's what I do. So I stay focused, and it is tough to watch. Don't get me wrong. It is tough to watch 1,000 YouTube videos a week. But you know what, man? I work from home. My wife, as we say, my wife is retired. We homeschool our kids. We can travel. You know, we've gone to Disney World in the middle of January when everybody else is back at school. We go on vacations. We can travel. When you're an online coach, you can do all that stuff from anywhere.
Yeah, so it's like, the grind leads to, I go, okay, you think it's all perfect. You know, I tell everybody it's not. The first 2 minutes or 5 minutes of your wake up is tough. Then it gets easy, and then soon you start to thrive on the challenge. Everybody knows I'm usually in and out during these podcasts with my freaking dog.
No, you're good. No worries.
So you begin to kind of thrive on the challenge rather than I think like a weak-minded person would not thrive on the challenge. They'd let it make them crumble. And then I also honestly tell people, I go, hey, it's the human food chain. We need people who are going to, quit and give up and complain because there's only so much room at the top. Not everybody could be the best business person, gym owner, online coach, and so on. So you've got to decide, like, are you willing to deal with some discomfort and find comfort in that? Kind of like, you're flipping the switch on.
When you do, look, there are mornings where I get up and I've worked, I go, God, I haven't had a day off in 23 days or whatever. I really would like a day off. And so I'm going to take today off and I'm going to watch Netflix and I'm going to watch 8 hours of Game of Thrones or whatever. Have you ever done that and you finished and feel satisfied? It's the opposite.
Yes.
You go, God, I wasted a whole day, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that I don't want to ever take rest. I love, taking my kids out and having fun, going eating a nice dinner with my family, those things. But those days where I just Netflix and chill all day, which is like about 3 times a year, those are never satisfying.
Sure,
they're the opposite, right?
You're like cursing at yourself.
The next day.
Yeah, I know you're mad at yourself. I found that the harder I work, the more satisfied I feel. But and Gary Vaynerchuk mentioned this. We mentioned him earlier. He's like, okay, people are taking pot shots at me because I talk about hustle, work. He goes, but they don't see me not working at all in August and really being relentless for 4 weeks, spending it with the family, or weekends. I shut it down. And he goes, look, some people, they might have a normal job, or they may be with their family, but they're not really there. So I found that these hard-working times allow me to do what you're saying is we could go away for a week here, a week there, and I could just be with the family. And, like I just recently looked at it, like I kind of started going online. I was probably like a 4th or 5th year teacher, so around 02, 03. And it's like only now I've had people email me and say, hey, Zach, how's it going? You're probably laughing your way to the bank. Like that's so far from the truth. And it's only been recent that I feel like some kind of respect has come to me past the business. A lot of people looked at me as an entrepreneur business guy when at the core, I am a coach. I build savages. That's what we do. And that's what I always wanted to be known for. And I always say, well, my relentless pursuit of putting out so much info made people look at me like a business guy versus a coach. And I always say, I'll take the blame. I'll take the blame for that. But, I haven't heard one person yet tell me it's an easy road.
Yeah.
It's a long road. Let's,
we're
go ahead.
For that stuff.
We got a strength question here. This is a cool one. MD Jas 3 was saying, what's the single accomplishment numbers-wise you're most proud of, and like what took you the longest to obtain? So is it, squat, bench, deadlift? Like, what's the thing that you really had to fight for that you're most proud of, and how what was the journey?
True strength athlete. I'm wildly unhappy with all of my lifts. Right? I mean, look, that's what a competitive athlete is, right? So
that's right.
Probably my best lift is I've deadlifted 725. I have a 725 deadlift, and I weighed like 239. So I've got
with a belt or
3 times. Yeah.
Suit or powerlifting suit?
Yeah, no suit. No suit. 725 in nothing but a belt in a powerlifting meet in the 242 class, and I weighed a little under, so I have a 3 times bodyweight deadlift. I'm probably most proud of that. Here's the deal. man, I want an 800-pound deadlift so bad.
Yep.
I mean, I'd want it so bad. I mean, I would eat dog shit every day from now until Jesus came back if I could just get an 800-pound deadlift. That's what I want, right?
Funny.
And so, I don't know that there's any lift that I'm proud of. I've always wanted to bench 500 raw. I've been so close, and then I tore a pec, and then that's what you do. I mean, that's what this, I have to be really careful when I talk to my clients. I say, okay, here's the deal. There's a pendulum here. You start weak and unhealthy, and I'm going to get you strong and healthy, and then you're going to make a decision. Do you want to stay strong and healthy, or do you want to keep getting stronger? At which point the pendulum starts to swing into the competition side, because competition is no longer healthy, right? Where you go, okay, stuff can start tearing off the bone at this point, right? And I'm addicted to being really strong. I love being really strong. I don't know how to not be really strong. I don't know what I'm going to do when the day comes.
How old are you, Matt? How old are you, Matt?
I'm 37, almost 38. Yeah.
Okay, because somebody had asked me a question about age and training, and I think this person was like in their 40s, and I basically referred them. I said, you got to talk to somebody like Donnie Thompson, Dave Tate. Yep. They've really been through a lot. Dave, the both of them. I remember Donnie talking about, we spoke a couple of years back at North Carolina. He said when he was doing his break, going for the 3,000 total, he's like, I got under the squat bar and I felt my femurs bending, and I was like, what was so crazy is Donnie is a sweetheart, and he's talking about feeling his femurs bending, and it's like sweetheart on one side, just I don't know, some sort of monster within him on the other. It was amazing. So you've what you're saying, and I tell people, I go, look, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Go sit on the couch and just play it safe. Let me know how your back feels. Let me know how your knees feel. Let me know how your stomach and energy level feel. It hurts. Yep. And you're right. Pushing the envelope, just not even in the strength world, but in the sports world, our highest level athletes, they have, a meniscus tear. They need to get a shoulder scope. Yep. So it's kind of like I go, your body is in dog years. You're 17, but your knees and shoulders are 71.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really comes down to personality, too. If you're that type B person, you can probably be satisfied with strong and healthy. But I found that all of us guys who are wired to be type A, entrepreneurial, driven, ambitious sort of guys will never be okay with that, right? And so, I've got to convince sometimes some people, I tell them, you need to squat, you need to deadlift. Well, I got this back problem, I got this knee problems. We've got people that coach, you constantly deal with that. Then you've got to convince them, well, how does your back get healthier if you don't do anything on it? I have to teach you how to deadlift to get your back strong.
That feels healthy. A strong back, to me, I feel healthier.
It's kind of a funny side story. We had a chiropractor come out to Strong Gym in the earlier days of Strong Gym when it was nothing but powerlifters, and he had this little thing where he put the little nodes on your back and read them on the computer. And he was going to go he thought, I'm going to go to these guys. They're all going to have jacked up backs. They're doing strongman stones. You can't do a strongman stone with good form, right? You've got to have a rounded, your back has to be in flexion because it's too low and too round and there's nothing to hang on to. So you basically straight leg, round back, deadlift a stone, put it in your lap, and then try to reset and try to put it up. So he came in and tested probably 25 guys' backs that were all competitive powerlifters and strongmen. And you could see by the time he was about the fifth guy in, you were looking at these on the screen, they had the lights that went down your back, and if it was green, it meant healthy. And if it was yellow, it meant and if it was red, it meant we got a problem. And it was just green all the way down everybody's back. And we're over there and we're doing 400-pound stones. He's like, hey, come over, let me check your back now. Green. You're like, I don't get it. What do you mean you don't get it? Your spinal erectors are so big and thick and strong that they protect your spine. That's the point. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And so we get people strong. Now, we'll tear a bicep off, right? So again, if you get to that point where you push strength past, you start pushing. This is what American football is going through right now at the NFL level. We have made it so that our bodies cannot keep up with the game, right? So something's probably going to have to change. Now, the kind of libertarian in me says, hey, man, if somebody wants to do it for millions of dollars, let them do it. I love it. But if I got a little kid, I'm like, I don't know if I want to, right? That's the decision that every parent has to make right now. You go, here's a sport that has continued to it has pushed the limits and limits and limits of what humans can do. And so we do the same thing in strength sports. And so my goal is to take normal people. My average demographic for online coaching is 30 to 40 or 30-year-old, from 30 to 50 males, men, mostly men. I've got about 20%, maybe 15% female. And I also have, obviously, some males in their 20s. I have some people in their 60s and stuff, but most of my males are in that demographic, middle-aged, business professional. I don't want to have dad bod. I'm weak. My back hurts. My knees hurt. I like taking those people and making them strong. And those people are genetically average. And so I know that it makes me a better coach. If I'm coaching at the Division I level, and I'm not saying anything against those guys, but, man, all you have is freaks.
Yes.
All you have are genetically gifted kids.
Yep.
So it actually matters less what their programming is because they're awesome, right? Now, when you coach high school kids, it's a different deal because high school kids, you run the gamut. You get 2 or 3 that are freaks, and you get 2 or 3 that are physically retarded.
Yes.
But it's the bell curve. Most of the people you have are in the middle, and so you can really hone your skills as a strength coach. But the Division I pro level, those guys are freaks. I like working with very average people. And in person, I like dealing with people who are on the bottom end of the bell curve. So I got a guy that had polio. He's 63 years old. He had polio when he was 5, and he only has the use of one arm. He is 63. I've had him for 6 months. He deadlifted 230 for a set of 5 last week. One arm, 63 years old. And I want to deal with that guy, right? 82-year-old lady, church organist for 20 years, double hip replacement, knee replacement, spines fused together, 2 inches of one Achilles has been cut off. She deadlifted 120 pounds for a set of 5 last week, right? What we're doing for her is we're keeping her out of the nursing home. She gets to be independent. She's a widow. Nobody lives with her, and she's fine. She's doing great. That's who I want. I want that person because every once in a while I'll keep an 18. I've got a 21-year-old, 20-year-old kid right now in the Army. He's PsyOps. I keep him around to remind myself of what it's like to be able to have a good athlete that I can crush every single day, and he can come back and be stronger. But the rest of them, I want the ones that are weird. But they're more fun at this point.
It's true. Sometimes the high-level ones, they don't want to listen, and it's
sure.
You're like, all right.
Yeah, you deal with that a lot. Yeah. The best athletes, man, are the ones who are genetically freaks and they'll work. And the most painful thing in high school is I had them all the time. Genetic freaks, God, if I would do anything to have your genetics. And they just won't work. They realize they don't have to work in high school. They'll kill everybody. And then they get into college and they suck.
Yep, I have seen that. They destroyed at the high school level. Then they got to D1 and they got destroyed because it's. I had heard this, and I'm going to introduce you to my buddies. Have you met any of the guys from Power Athlete Radio? Luke,
I know who those guys are. Yep.
I'll introduce you guys. So Tex was working with. He was either at. I think he's a lacrosse guy. So he was at one of the top universities for lacrosse, speaking to the coach, and he said, what do you look for when you're recruiting? And the coach said, I do not recruit kids from a losing team because then when I get them into college, now I have to teach them how to win, and it's very brutal. So it's like the kid who's got the genetics, he doesn't work. Now you have to teach him how to work. It's very hard. And I take that, and now I'm training much younger kids than ever before because we're getting 7th graders or even 16-year-olds. They're so fat, they're so out of shape, they can't do a push-up, they can't do our warm-up. But they go to the high school, and they're like, okay, put this bar on your back. And you're like, dude, this kid can't even sit on a toilet without, crumbling over. Right. Yep. So I'm looking at this at, I got to teach them earlier something. And then I want to kind of piggyback on what you were saying. This question coming from Anderson Physiotherapy. Matt's a PT. I met him down in, I think he's from North Carolina because he came to my seminar with Travis Mash and I. And he goes, what's a reasonable amount of weight to put on your total in 1 year? He's 35. He's been lifting for a while. He hasn't focused on being a power lifter, but he's also, he says, I've got multiple projects, jobs, commitments. So he's a busy guy. He's also a family guy, but it looks like he wants to motivate himself with a meet. Is there a reasonable number?
I think the way you think about this is, one, first of all, on a side note, training has to be a priority, right?
Yes.
It has to be. If you're a working guy, family, kids, I know that studies have shown that probably training is better and recovery is better if it's done late afternoon. I just don't think it works very well for business professionals because things happen during the day, and the next thing you know, I miss. And here's the deal: if you work and you go home after work, you're not training that day. Not unless
I,
your gym
I
is in
say
your
that
house.
all the time. I go
So
train early or go from work to the gym because as soon as you sit
it's your only
down,
options.
it's
That's right.
over.
You're not getting out of that chair, right? So first off, train early. Probably he needs to get up early and train because one, you'll feel better. I mean, training early, it sucks to get up early and train, but you feel so much better post training. You're like, all right, I'm ready to crush the day, right?
Yes.
Number two, another thing I love about starting strength is we have defined, like actually given definitions to novice, intermediate, advanced, right? So the question of I'm 35, how much can I add to my total? I would say, well, which one are you? A novice can. So one of the things we want to be a novice when it comes time to train because novices can add weight every single workout. If I can squat 225 for 3 sets of 5 on Monday, and then I can squat 230 on Wednesday and 235 on Friday, why would I do anything else, right? So as long as that works, you're a novice and you make incredible progress, very, very fast, pushing towards your genetic total. And then one day that doesn't work anymore. And now it's going to take me a week to recover between heavy squat workouts. So now I've got to squat heavy, then I got to squat a little lighter, maybe only squat twice, and maybe every Friday is my heavy squat day. So now you're an intermediate. It takes 1 to 2 weeks to recover from it. So it comes back to that stress, recovery, adaptation. Stress, recovery, adaptation. If I can stress my body on Monday, recover, adapt, and train again on Wednesday, that's what I want to do. But if I can't, then I'm an intermediate. So now it slows down a little bit. I'm 35, I'm 37 years old. How much can I add to my total with a 605-pound squat, a 460 bench press, and a 725 deadlift this year? Not very much.
Right.
Because it takes me a long. If I pull an over 700-pound deadlift, it takes me a month to recover from that and pull over 700 again. Doesn't mean I don't deadlift. No, it just means I deadlift lighter. I use variations of lifts. I get more volume in.
Yep.
Right. So that's really the question you have to ask yourself: is where. So if this guy is an intermediate, let's say he's an intermediate, he's been training for a while, so taking a week to recover. He can kind of think about, I can probably put about 5 pounds on my lower body lifts per week. And I can put about 2.5 pounds on my upper body lifts per week. That's another thing I think everybody should have. Everybody should have those 1 1/4 plates. Because once you start to crap out, like on the press, you're doing a military press, an overhead press, you can't add 5 pounds every workout. It's too much to add, right? 1.25 pound plates are $7 at Rogue. So get some of those and you can make your progress weekly. So if that's the case, the guy can add a significant amount of weight still to his total over the next year. If he starts thinking about, man, 5 pounds a week.
How many workouts? See, I think that somebody like Matt is pretty typical. He's kind of getting his entrepreneurial thing going on. He's got a family, so he hasn't given his training priority, which kind of detrained him. So he's going to have a. What do you think as far as frequency? A family man, entrepreneur. What are you going to say? 4 days a week?
Probably 3. 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and upper, lower, which means week 1, it's going to go lower, upper, lower. Week 2, it's going to go upper, lower, upper.
Yep.
And you're just going to keep going back and forth like that. And then what I do is I give priority so lower body, I'm going to squat first. I might have a heavy squat day and a lighter deadlift. And then the next time I do lower body day, it's going to be a lighter squat and a heavy deadlift. And those are going to alternate back and forth.
Yep.
And bench press and press are the same thing. So I'm going to bench heavy, press a little lighter. The next time I'm going to press heavy, bench a little lighter, or do a variation of the bench press, a close grip bench press, or a floor press, or something like that. And then you put your accessories in. Lower body day, if you've got access to glute ham raise and reverse hypers or lunges or any of those things are great. Upper body day, we're going to do a lot of back, a lot of chin-ups, a lot of pull-ups, heavy rows, things like that. Dips, I love. But I keep it pretty simple. Like my exercise selection is relatively low. Now, I'll do variations of the lifts, so I might do variations on the squat, the different squats, different bars or whatever, if that's appropriate in somebody's training. But in general, my overall exercise, especially with the accessories, I just think there's a lot of accessories that are bullshit, right? And most people don't have access to some of the cool if they don't have access to a glute ham raise and reverse hyper and strongman stuff, which is all really fun and really cool and very, very valuable, what do they do?
Right. What I'll say this, and I wonder if you did this. Where did I pick this up from? Mark Bell, I remember, spoke about this a while ago, and it works great for a garage gym lifter who doesn't have all this setup. So let's say you're benching, then your accessory work might be speed bench right after it, or a close grip bench, or rep work on the bench. So I'm going to, I remember that's how I boosted my benches. Like I'd build up to my heavy, single, triple, or a 5. Then I would go back down and do like 5x2 or 3x3 speed. And then I did 3 sets of rep work with varying grips. Whereas before that, I would bench. Then I would go and do dumbbell bench. Then I would do side. I did kind of like a west side kind of.
Sure.
And but when I used the barbell as my accessory, it went nuts. The squat is very tough when you do that. So you're gonna squat heavy, squat speed, squat reps. It just destroys you.
So is the deadlift.
I feel like the deadlift is tough to do that. Although the other day, I deadlifted heavy, and then I went lighter, and I did some medium weight with RDLs. So I feel like if you just got a barbell and a rack, you could be a savage.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I tell people. I like, look, I have sold the idea of why strength gyms are important. I do think the atmosphere in a strength gym is phenomenal. And I think if you're in a good strength gym, you should stay in that strength gym. But I have tons of clients come to me and go, where do I work out? And I go, roguefitness.com. Go order some equipment, put it in your garage and train. Because if there isn't anywhere in your city, if it's that or Planet Fitness, order a squat rack, right? And then I tell them, what do you need? You need a squat rack, a bench that goes in the squat rack, a barbell, and weights. That's it. Start there. I can do everything. I can program everything you need for a long time with just that. Right? People get away from, I don't care where you are in your training as a novice, intermediate, or advanced, at 90% of your lifts should come, 90% of your work should come from the core lifts. I don't care. I mean, who needs to do, the only group that's not in that are bodybuilders, and that's not who I train. I train for performance first, and aesthetics is a byproduct of that performance. People who want to just train to just look good, I send them somewhere else. I go, look, everybody wants to look better. There's nothing wrong with that. But if the goal is just to look better, dude, I can't fix your face. We can't, what are we going to do? And so, but I can make you perform better, right? If the goal is, hey, I want to get strong, I can quantify performance gains. True. But it's real hard to go take a picture of your belly and let's see if it's a little leaner this week, right? Now we can take measurements, and we do that kind of stuff. But that it's just, to me, it's shallow and vain. And when aesthetics is the sole goal, that's not what we do.
I spoke about that with Matt Vincent. I was like, dude, I'm just not inspired about getting ripped and all that stuff. I'm so much inspired if we, what we spoke about in the beginning of how strength changed our life. And essentially gave us a life, if we could say that. That's what inspires me, and I think maybe in the beginning people don't get that until they get into it. Then they're like, so let's I want to close out here. Let's you got any final things that you want to talk about? Anything we didn't cover, Matt? Or
oh man, that's good. I'm easy to get a hold of. Again, I'm Reynolds Strong at everything. ReynoldsStrong.com, Reynolds Strong on all the social media networks. I'm actually ReynoldsStrong@gmail.com for my email. If anybody has additional questions after this, I'm happy to answer them. I'll get to them pretty quick. I answer a lot of emails every day, and so I'm happy to answer questions. I love to help, man. I had great people that took me under their wing and took the time when I was a nerdy, weak, didn't know anything kid. And so, another thing I kind of stole from Gary Vee that I heard him say, it's so easy for us to say, hey, I want to give back. And he said, just leave the word back off. Just give, man. And so, but it is, so many people gave to me, and I've got all this knowledge that I've accumulated that I want to give that out to people. I know, I go, God, if I'd known that stuff when I was 20 years old, if I'd known that when I was 18. And so, cool. So yeah, any questions that people have for me, please feel free to ask.
And then like I said earlier, I'm always super transparent with people. When I feel like I'm going through a rut, I always invest in a coach. So we did some business coaching, and for me, maybe it's because I'm a coach. I believe in the coach method, but I've always been that way. I remember if I invested in something, whether it's like a CD or an Audible book, I'm like, okay, you've got to pick up one thing and you have to take action with it. You got to do one thing today to make a return of your investment. So when you and I spoke, it was like, okay, I just invested time, money. Now I've got to make it back because I like laziness, just eats at me. And I always fear going that way. So when people get to your site, they'll see it's pretty clear. They could connect with you on business. Or on,
well. And
or
I
on
tell
training.
people this story a lot, Zach. It's people know who you are, and so I tell them, I say, hey, look, Zach Evanesh called me, and he said, hey, I want to hire you as a business coach. I want you to do some business. And I said, no. Like, well, I've been reading your stuff for 15 years. Let's just sit down and talk. Like, no, I'm going to pay for your service. That's what and so you see the people that understand it's worth it, right? It's worth it. And so and for me, that's what I always want to under promise and over deliver at every level. I've got about 17 business clients that I mentor there that I'm watching their gyms. I actually travel to their gyms a lot of times and go see the gyms. I travel so much, so I have an opportunity to go see their stuff, and so get to see their gyms, invest in their gyms, and take all those systems I spent years writing for Strong and help them use those in their gym, convert those, change the stuff, make it work for them, and give them systems and standard operating procedures, and how do we make this work, and how do we lead a good team, and all those things. I love that stuff, man. And I get pumped to do it.
We need, I think now more than ever, the year 2016, we need clarity. I'm even like, maybe a month ago, I purchased like a nutrition book from the Power Athlete guys. Now, they're close friends of mine. I know I could have emailed and said, can you pass this to me? But I swear to you, it was 47 or 49 bucks. And since then, like, I've been eating so clean. Like yesterday, there's cake in the house. No cake. I don't know, a week ago, my wife and kids wanted ice cream. I didn't eat ice cream. I just don't want it. And I think that's even a little part of it. Like, I
invest. You have some skin in the game.
Yes.
You had to take an extra step to buy the book and say, well, I bought the book and I spent my... James Yeager does this exact same thing with me every time. I never know that he's coming to my things. He gets on and pays for it and doesn't use his name, and then he shows up at my house and he paid full price. I said, don't, stop paying. He's like, I know you would let me come for free, but he's like, it's worth the money, so I'm going to pay. So here's this guy who would never have to pay for anything that I do, and he refuses not to. He's going to pay because he understands the value of what he's paid for, and he understands that same thing. Look, if he has skin in the game, here's a guy who's not in the fitness industry. If he has skin in the game, and I teach him how to squat, what are the chances he's going to keep squatting because he spent a bunch of money on the camp? But if he just comes out for free, right? It's the same thing when you as a trainer. When you're charging $100 a month to train somebody, they don't give a shit about it for $100 a month. But when you charge $500 a month, people follow what you say because it hurts a little bit, because that's a Lexus payment, right?
Yeah, I've said this so often, and it's like it crushes me. Like I'll know somebody, and I'll know that maybe they're struggling financially, and I'll say, I'll scholar you. And they just don't, they think that I'm just like some Joe Schmo, and then they don't even show up, and you're like, shit, like you tried to help them, and they don't. And that's why, like, in my mind, I'm always have this struggle of saying one day my gym will be free because the kids need it. But when it's free, nobody respects it.
That's right.
They don't respect it, and it's. I think these are lessons. I know I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I'm like, damn, we got to teach that stuff in the schools because I feel like I had a parent kind of like complain to us a little bit because their son didn't schedule his workout for like 5 weeks in a row. So we say, listen, if it's like 3 or 4 weeks and you can't take 10 seconds to click a button, you're not training with the group that day. You're on your own. So the parent complained, and I said, it's not the public schools anymore. You can't come and complain to me about somebody not taking 10 seconds accountability, responsibility. And if you don't want to come, let me know. We'll cancel. And I never. I used to before the Ultimate Warrior passed away. We used to speak on a regular basis, and he did a keynote at my first underground strength conference, and he goes, it's not in life, it's not the things you get to say yes to so much. He goes, it's the things you get to say fuck you to.
Right.
I said, oh shit, yeah, brother.
That's true. Well, and I think that you're making a bigger difference. That's one of the things that even come back. You're coaching a lot of junior high kids now. And you talk about that work ethic, right? How it changes who you are. Man, when you get a kid at 17 or 18, it's hard to instill work ethic into a 17. But at 13, they can still be molded, right? They're smack in the middle of puberty at that point or going into it.
Yeah.
You can actually mold who they are as a coach. And so you talk about going back to the way when I taught junior high. Like, at first, I didn't want to teach junior high. I wanted to teach high school. But as I got in with these kids, you started to realize I'd probably make a bigger impact on these kids at junior high than if I had a bunch of 17 and 18-year-old kids. You enjoy the good 17 and 18-year-old kids, and you put up with the shitty ones. Yeah. But at junior high, you actually have an opportunity to actually start to mold the kids who were born, lazy and have parents who won't get them to work. And so So I think as strength coaches, I think there's a real market there to
Middle
start to
school
really hone their
great.
skills, because it changes who they are.
That is, I actually tell coaches a lot. They're like, oh, I can't connect with this high school kid. His coach threatened me. And I said, man, work the middle school kids.
Yep.
We have more middle school kids now than ever. And I always tell them, I go, I love you guys. You want to know why? Not because of how hard you work, but when you guys are done, you say thank you and shake my hand at the end. And to me, I think that's part of being strong. And when I was a middle school teacher, it was right before I tore my ACL and started getting into strength and conditioning. And I look back and I say, if I was in the middle school now, I would convert my side of the gym into basically like a physical preparation center.
Sure.
I'd get those sleds that you could drag on the wooden floor.
Sure.
I'd get kettlebells, bands, and we would train. We would do strength conditioning 3 days a week, and then twice a week we could do the basketball, volleyball, or whatever the sports are.
Yep. Why don't we do a long-term athletic development model in the U.S., right? Like, it would be so great for our kids. You just lay out this long-term plan, right? So it's calisthenics and it's gymnastics and it's jumping on a trampoline and it's soccer and it's swimming early. And it's fun. It's just fun. Like, we don't have to get crazy. Let's expose them to as many different, and what you do is you keep, the worst thing that's happened to athletics in America is the specialization of sport at 13 years old. What a joke.
Kids are,
so we have these kids, we've got the best 13-year-old athletes in the country who are burnt out by the time they're 17 and don't want to play anymore. Let your kids go have fun at 13, and at 17, 18, when they get in college. Bo Jackson didn't specialize, right? Like, you get a lot of these. As a matter of fact, and not just Bo Jackson because he's a freak, but you've got these guys that you see, these athletes who learn work ethic because they were in track and in basketball and in football and in all these sorts of things. That's what you should do with your kids. And even if they're not in a position to go play public sports, like our kids, we homeschool our kids. Man, my kids swim. They go to gymnastics. They go to dance. They go to acting.
We got to do a podcast on that. I want to do a podcast with you on homeschooling kids. I know Ben Greenfield homeschooled his kids. That's something I want to dig into. Let's call it a day. I know you got a lot of stuff. It's your anniversary, first of all.
It is my anniversary.
You are the man. I'm going to get this up immediately. Everybody listening, undergroundstrength.tv is the same as zachevnesh.com. I'm going to link up the show notes. I believe this is episode 83. I'm pretty sure. I'll link everything back to Matt's website and all his social channels. Reach out to him. And I'll also link up Starting Strength seminars, since you tend to be coaching a lot. Do they list the coaches for the seminars or no?
I think you can find out who they are. Yeah, so I think you get sent a thing. Yeah,
I'll link back to that.
I'm doing most of the next several that are up. So the next few we've got coming up, we've got Wichita Falls in June, Seattle in July, LA in August, and I'm doing all three of those.
Oh, so you're kind of you're heading out west. All right.
Yep.
You guys got anything coming up? I know they go to Brooklyn.
We go to Brooklyn twice a year. Osorio's gym, CrossFit South Brooklyn, probably the best CrossFit in the country. We go out there twice a year. I think it's October and April. We typically go to Brooklyn. October, April. So the next one will be in October, and then April next year. He sells them out every time. Yeah. That's the hard thing about Brooklyn, is he sells those things out in about 2 weeks. So
mid-October, the Power Athlete guys are going to be in Philly. And I don't know if I travel at all, but man, if we could all find a way to gather for a day or something.
Yeah, we need to do it for sure.
Cool, man. So
I'll just fly somewhere. We'll go hang out.
That's right. You are the best, Matt. This was awesome. Happy 16th anniversary, my man.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, dude.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Hook us up with a 5-star review. ReynoldsStrong.com. That's where you guys should go if you're listening, and you'll be able to get to all of Matt's social links. As you could tell, great guy. I mean, I don't have to say anymore. We just crushed this podcast. Take care, everybody, and thanks again.